Ruma, so what motivated you to transition from commercial litigation to founding your own law firm?
Ooh, a couple of factors. I would say the biggest one was definitely the pandemic, coupled with my mom's encouragement. So, my mom is an entrepreneur. She owns her own mortgage brokerage. My parents actually work together. And so, for the last over 25 years, I've watched them build a business from scratch. And lasting that long is like quite a feat and an accomplishment. I can't say I was like super inspired by it because it was hard. Like in 2008 when the market crashed, it was traumatizing. So I started with the safe route of like, going into a law firm job. And and then once the pandemic hit, we had a hard look at life. My life was very different then. I was living with my ex-husband. Um, and my mom kind of paused and was just like, I'm thinking about wanting to actually retire from working. And she's very young. She's like in her early 50s. I was like, retire? What are you going to do with all your time? And she's just like, well, I just think it's time for you to take over the family business. And I was like, I'm truly flattered. However, I am killing it at being an attorney and I'm just not ready to leave that and like leave that degree behind, and I feel like there's still things that I need to do with it. And she was like, well, you've been working really hard for the last amount, like X amount of years. Like I had just finished a trial right before the pandemic hit, and between like October to when the trial finished in January of 2020, I like fell off the face of the earth because we were just in trial mode
How litigation
preparing.
works sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. And she was just like, I mean, is that what you want your life to be? And I was like, well, my boss also told me like cases like that only come around once in a lifetime. So maybe I've also peaked. So I'm open to hearing what you have to say. And then she was like, well, if you don't want to quit the law, start your own firm. And I was like, I've worked for these like big machines my whole life. Like I don't know how to start a firm. Like I've always been, it was like Covington and Burling, then I went to Fox Rothschild, then I went to Ackerman in New York City. And these are big, big firms with hundreds of attorneys. And I'm like infrastructure, systems. I'm like hiring. Like I was like, that sounds crazy. And she was like, just start, just try, see if you like it. And I was like, what would I even practice? Because I wasn't going to open a litigation firm. It was just like way too many resources. So she's like, oh, well, why don't you do residential closings? And I was like, that's very different from what I do. And she was like, maybe you'll like it. And so she basically ended up introducing me to an elderly attorney who's definitely like on his way to retirement now. And he was telling me about just his storied life of being a solo practitioner. And I was like, well, if I start my own firm, I definitely don't want to be a solo, but I will take all the wisdom you're willing to give me to at least get me started on this area of just residential closings. So that's kind of how it all started.
I I mean, I wonder why was she pushing it so much? That's my first question. Is because she clearly was trying to push you in a direction. So I'm just curious. Do you know why?
My mom has like a weird sixth sense. It's like this like woo woo stuff. And my entire life, it's like I always would go against what she would say.
That's
And
I
then
mean
I
that's
would
what a child does. Yeah. So
and then I would
that's
just end up
understandable.
right back, in the initial path that she told me to do. So for once, I was like, maybe I won't push so hard on this one. And because I was working remotely during that time, I was actually able to like take on clients like just under the letterhead of the attorney that was mentoring me, and keep it separate from like the law firm work that I was doing. And it wasn't so obvious. Like I worked at like crazy hours anyways. But I was basically able to trial it and see if I wanted to work with just the everyday consumer because I was used to representing big corporations and um, commercial landlords and just like an entity, right? Like no soul. And now I was working with people, emotions, and stress of them, purchasing like the biggest investment of their life. So it was like it was night and day. So I also was like, that's such a shift. And I wanted to make sure that I really like enjoyed it, wanted to do it, at least sparked my interest in some way. And then it did. So I was fortunate for that.
Yeah. I mean, do you miss the litigation at all?
I don't. But I really do love having that background because real estate transactions can get a little dicey. But because of my world, like because of my background in litigation, oftentimes I'm able to just settle it before it gets to a point of like these parties suing each other. So in that way, when, like the opposing counsel or like the other attorney starts getting a little like, I'm going to sue you, we're going to start sending letters and things like that, like I don't freak out because I used to be a litigator. And I'm like, this is nothing. Like, don't worry about it.
Yeah, those kind of threats. It's like, okay, I've seen these threats before. So that is nice. It's equipped you to face those challenges. That's for sure. Would you say that COVID actually helped you because you were able to kind of start this thing a little bit slower and have a little bit more, I guess, almost a little bit more runway to actually build up at the beginning of the firm?
Yeah, definitely. And especially because everything had transitioned to remote, I wasn't worried about finding an office and I wasn't worried about like getting signage done. Like all of those things were just like out the window. Like all I really needed was Wi-Fi, stable connection, and a laptop and a client who was willing to trust me and work with me.
Yeah, the client's important part, right?
Yeah.
Really. So you're still fully remote, right?
I am. We do have an office space, which is actually within my parents' building. But we barely ever use it just because of the way that I've set up the transactions and set the customer expectation that it's just going to be a very remote process with my team. But there are in-person components for them. It's just not going to be in my office. It's going to be either at a title company's office or their real estate agent's office because they all still have spaces.
I wonder if you experienced something similar to what I did whenever I started my firm, where I had left an office that I had a really nice office, right? I had a view of the river in St. Louis. We had a wonderful balcony, and it was just you had all the perks of being downtown and seeing everything. You also had the downsides of like parking and just walking to the office. It was awful. But I wonder if you had any. Part of me was like, I kind of miss like that office, like it having that nice office. And then at the beginning, though, when you're first starting, you don't have all the nice things. So I wonder if you struggle with that at all.
So I think by the time I opened my firm, like that was August 2021. So we were pretty far into the pandemic at that point. So I had really acclimated to like the remote life. And my firm at one point, they were like, my boss was kind of like, hey, let's come in like once a week to just like regroup, talk to each other. And like, like just like let's come into the office. Like we moved into a nice new office space. Like let's use it. And as I started doing the commute again, I was like, I hate this. Like, I actually didn't care that I had like a nice office with like nice equipment and things like that. Like, I was happy to be set up in my 1-bedroom apartment, which also, though, like overlooked the New York City skyline because I lived right outside the city. So I was like, I have better views from home than I do in my actual office.
Not too bad. That's a pretty good perk then. Then you don't really have to worry about, missing out on a nice big office or anything like that. So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So you are going to be speaking at Max LawCon this year, and Becca wanted to make sure I brought that up. And so I believe the title is going to be the virtual scale blueprint, building a thriving remote law firm and step into your CEO role. Is that right? Is that the name of it?
I mean, that's what I submitted. I may tweak it a little as I start working on it.
Sure. And that as someone that has done that multiple times, I've gone from one title and whole idea to a completely different one at the last minute. So, that drives Becca crazy. But tell us a little bit about what motivated you to want to talk about that.
So I think the biggest thing is just the world that we live in and also legal services, the way that they are, I guess, sold now almost. We are just a very remote environment and there's lots of attorneys who I feel like leave the practice of law because of the old school way of practicing. Even back when I was a college student and I just started cold calling attorneys all over New York City, a lot of them just had the same, half of them said, don't go to law school. And then the other half said, make sure you get real world experience so you know what it really feels like, right? So that didn't deter me, but I knew that when I started my practice, I wanted to do it my way. And I wanted to see if I could do it my way. And so my way was, in the beginning, I kind of created like a lifestyle firm, which is like I worked the hours that I wanted to. Not in the beginning. I mean, I was hustling really hard for year one, not gonna lie, like round the clock. But in year 2 and 3, like I was traveling all over the world. I was on a flight every single month. And I was able to practice without any sort of, geographical boundaries in a sense of like I had to be in an office. And I realized a lot of it just is setting the expectation and just being authentic to just how you want to practice law. It just, you can pick and choose how you want to do it, and you will attract the clients who respect that and are okay with that, because a lot of people need legal services and there's a ton of lawyers giving them. And we're at a point now, especially with like technology and the way the world is moving. AI is a huge disruptor. I mean, it would be crazy if like we weren't able to practice remotely.
Yeah, you actually, I've cherry picked a LinkedIn post of yours. I think it's part of the post. It's not the full post, but it's with just my MacBook, some Wi-Fi, and an incredible amount of love and support from my family and friends. I took the leap to start my own practice, and so that was a while ago. But the part that I want to focus on is with just my MacBook, some Wi-Fi, that part of it. I think that is an extremely powerful tool that we have, where we can practice. Like, one of our core values is the ability to handle cases at any time, anywhere, so we can meet our clients where they are. And however, I do think that there's some downsides to that. So,
Yeah.
can you talk about some of the downsides where, because we always talk about when it comes to remote, like our office is hybrid. So I think there's a tremendous amount of benefits of having remote work, but I don't think we talk enough about the downsides of it. I think so. Will you talk about some of the downsides of maybe having the MacBook and Wi-Fi and basically the ability to work anywhere at any time?
Yeah. So in my first year, I ran my business off my cell phone. So like anyone could reach me at any time. And because of that, people were like, and I would be up at 5 a.m. sending emails, which then triggered people to call me. And I was like, wait, no, that's not why I meant to do that. I just like working between 5 a.m. and 8 a.m. before the actual business hours begin. So I had to learn how to set boundaries in this remote world, because otherwise, people will reach out to you like at any point, and especially in real estate, because real estate moves so quickly. And the New Jersey market is like crazy hot. People want to contact their attorney ASAP and be able to like start talking to them right away. And I think the other downside too, I mean, I have a fully remote team. I've been working with people like since the day I started my practice, and I've never met them in person. And like we have such a strong connection just through like working remotely, talking every day, and going through the struggles of like growing my firm from year 1 to year 4. But I'm like, I've never met you in person, which is crazy. So you kind of miss a lot of that. And then I also think like training is hard remotely. I feel like there's such a learning curve of doing that, because you are just sharing a screen and just trying to like walk them through what you're doing. There's like nothing tangible. And I'm like, even I'm sometimes like a visual learner, and I like to write things down and like see things and like hold something.
Yeah.
So I think those are some of the downsides of it.
Yeah, that I 100% agree. How about culture? How are you able to maintain a good culture, like keep things fun? I mean, maybe you don't keep things fun. But having spoken to you for now, 20 minutes or so, it seems like you probably do keep things fun. But how are you able to maintain that culture whenever you haven't been in the same room with the person?
Yeah, so we have a series of like weekly all team meetings. And we used to have like 2 all team meetings, but we moved it to 1 now. And in that meeting, we do like an icebreaker to open up the meeting. We do talk about, our files, our deadlines. I also openly share like the numbers of the firm, like where we are.
Oh, we're gonna get into that then. Okay, this is because I'm fascinated by people like you that do that. But okay, keep going. But let's keep talking about culture though.
And then we also have a book club. So everyone gets to submit like a book for the month, and we spin the wheel and we pick a book. And, for this month, we're reading Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey.
Great book. Yep.
It's so good. And we all love it because it pulls out like people's mindset, their story. It's so cool to see what people resonate with as we read each part. And then in general, I have like a very like open communication policy with my team. I don't micromanage them. I let them know, there's flexibility in being remote. And then I share, like I ask, like I ask about their family and like what's important to them a lot. One of the things that I do every year is I try to have like a one-on-one that's like not even like an evaluation, but it's more of like, hey, let's check up, like talk to me about, your 5-year plan. Is your 5-year plan still that 5-year plan? And then I try to do things to get them to achieve that 5-year plan. So like I really get to know my employees and my staff.
Thanks. Very good. Are you listening to the book? Or are you reading the book?
I'm listening to it because
That's the way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna recommend that you stop what you're doing and stop reading it and start listening to it, because it's read by Matt. For those of you that have not read it or listened to it, it's read by Matthew McConaughey, and he adds like extra stuff into it, which is
Yeah.
it's just something about his voice and the way he delivers it. It's just it makes it a really entertaining book.
All the accents and everything too, like you can like also visualize it, just the way that he's reading and everything. It's great.
Absolutely. All right, so let's talk about the sharing of the numbers, because I think that there's a lot of potential risk with this, but I think that there's benefit. So tell me about why you've chosen to share, but you're just open with all the numbers with your people.
I think transparency is important, especially because I found that the more transparent I am, the more loyal the staff is too. Like they understand that everything we're doing is for their benefit, and real estate can be really nasty sometimes, and it can be really intense because it's very cyclical. We'll hit months where like we'll have a really great week and then we'll have a really bad 3 weeks, and it kind of like shifts the way people start working and things like that, right? So like this just happened recently where the month of May, the first 3 weeks were okay. And then our last week, right after Memorial Day, we had a record-breaking week. And my entire team, they just felt like they were like at capacity and they couldn't do the work. And now when I talk to them on Monday, it's going to be like, hey, I know it's been like, it felt like a squeeze, but let me just go through the numbers so we can talk about how May wasn't really as good as we're feeling right now.
So okay, I am good with everything you've said up to this point. And I think that because we talk about like one of our quarterly rocks is based on the amount of fees we brought in, right? So I think things like that are really important. I will sometimes bring up like costs and all, and our team is very good about, hey, we're spending too much money here. We're using this software and we rarely use it though. We should get rid of it. So I think having that kind of culture where like almost like that startup culture, I think that is really, really important, that everyone is conscious of that. Here's where I'm wondering if you share this though. Does everyone know what everyone else is making?
No, they don't know that.
Okay, so there is a line. Okay,
There
so
is a line. Well,
okay.
I also hire people in different countries, right? So there's a stark difference in someone that's in New Jersey versus someone that's in like, Lima, Peru.
That's very true. There's also like can become issues where if the person in Lima, Peru is making more than the person in the United States, because that could be, there are those situations where that could happen too, depending on the expertise of the person. So, so this is because I always I'm very curious about people that share salary information from employee to employee. And I was really curious if you shared that. So you and I are on the same page, I think, with most of it. Is there anything that you think that you share when it comes to a numbers perspective that you think that maybe most firm owners would kind of cringe at?
That I share?
Yeah, it's like, is there any other so we don't like, it's not like we share all of our financial documents with
No, I don't like pull up a P&I, right? But like the numbers that I like on a weekly basis, I tell them what we've collected. And then I let them know once I meet with our CFO, our fractional CFO, I'm like, hey, these are our numbers for last month. These are the amount of closings that we had. These are the amount of files that got canceled. These are the fees that we brought in. And then these are the expenses that we had. So everyone knows what our break even point is because, I'm like, we have a break even point. Anything above X amount means like, I can bonus you guys. And so like, basically that's, kind of how I share it with them.
Nice. I want to go back to your mom for a second. Do you ever lean on her as kind of like a informal board of advisors where, because she's not done what you've done before when it comes to running a law firm, but she's done her own thing when it comes to real estate. So do you ever kind of go back to her and like, hey mom, like, can you give me some advice on this? Can you give me advice on that?
I don't.
Oh, why not? Okay.
So when I said in the beginning, like, I watched them build this business for X amount of years, but it's really a mom and pop shop. And I have a lot of respect for them because they put like me and my sister through college, and we've never like, there was times where like I didn't feel like I had everything I wanted, but for the most part, like they've supported all of our goals and dreams. And if I ever need anything, I know I can be like, hey mom, dad, I need help, right? But I'm also the older one, so I would never do that. But a lot of watching them was what I didn't want to do in my own business. So I think the conversations we have now is interesting because my mom has still been, for the last year and a half, been like, when are you taking over my business? I've seen what you've done with your firm. I need you to come and do it to my business.
Do you ever give her advice?
I've tried.
Ooh, okay. Tell me about a time where you tried and she pushed back.
There was a time where I actually opened up, I put space in my schedule to actually work in my mom's business like every other week for about like 4 hours on a certain day. So we would meet in person, and I was just doing a lot of just like fact finding. I was like, okay, how do your leads come in? What are your lead sources? Because really the only salesperson is my father, and my mom is all operations. And they don't track any of that stuff. Like they weren't doing any tracking whatsoever, So I was just like kind of asking, like, where do you get your business? And it's all really referral now. But then she's just like, oh, I want to do marketing. And I'm like, what does that even mean? She's like, I need a social media person, like, and I need you to manage them. And I'm like, that's just like not how it works, mom.
Yeah, this sounds a lot like my conversations with my parents, because they run. My dad's a mechanic. He's owned a garage for the last 20 years or so, and they run it together, and it's a very mom and pop shop, and it's funny. The reason why I was asking about if you give your mom advice is because early on I would give my dad advice, and he would like not listen to it. Like he would just be like, but then he started to watch me build our firm, and then he's like, oh, okay, maybe he does know something. It's because I think because they're so used to being our parents, right? That they don't. I'm sure that they respect our opinions and everything else, but they're still our parents, and they're the ones that are supposed to be educating us. And I think it's hard for them to kind of get over that sometimes.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I know I have the utmost respect of my mom because she literally wants to hand me her company. But at the same time, I'm like, I'm not ready for that. And I'd love to like do it together also. Because she has so much industry knowledge and she's been an operator for like 25 years. Like that's just natural knowledge that I can't learn as quickly as she wants me to. But it's hard because I'll be like, we need to spend money here. And she's like, no, I want to do this all for free. And I was like, that's not how it works either.
Nope. Do you think at some point you'll take over her company? And not to say that you're going to close your law firm, but that you'll do both?
Yeah, definitely. It's on my like vision for the next decade, to definitely do that because they've worked so hard. The company has like a name in the community, and they've served so many clients. Like I wouldn't want it to just end because they wanted to retire.
Is that part of the reason why you chose the niche that you chose?
I mean, it goes so hand in hand. It's like, it's so funny because my mom was like, this was always my vision that like our whole family's always working together. But yeah, I mean, they were the reason I had clients for the first 3 months, every home buyer, every borrower they were working with, my dad was like, you have to work with my daughter. You can't choose any other attorney. That's it. And he had that sort of pull because everyone knows him in the community. Like everyone knows my dad. So there was not even a question. They would like just blindly trust him and be like, okay, we'll work with your daughter. That's fine.
Yeah. This is an interesting topic that I hadn't really thought about actually discussing with you, but there's a substantial drop off when it comes to a child taking over the family business. I don't know if you ever looked at these numbers, but there's like the failure rate like skyrockets, and then from parent to child, it's a massive drop off. From parent to then grandchild, it's way worse. It's like drop by like 50% and then drop by like 80%. So it's
Oh,
like the
wow.
failure rates. It's a massive failure rate. So, with that in mind, you may or may not have known that about those numbers, but what do you think you need to do to start to prepare to make sure that that doesn't happen whenever you eventually do take over that business?
I'm big on education, of course, as an attorney. That's like the biggest thing. I'd probably sit and study for the same licenses that my parents have, just to make sure that I understand. And I did actually start studying for it during the pandemic. I just never took the exam. So, like that would be like my first step because that's always my first step. I'm like, do I even like this area of work? And then I think it's learning the sales process because that's really where they want me, like that's how they want me to help them grow. And I have to get into it at a point where my mom is still excited about the business so we can work hand in hand. And I just need to like build up the patience to work for that, like work through that because I think even last year when I was trying to do it, it was still too early in my own entrepreneurial journey and my journey as like becoming a CEO and things like that too. There's like such mindset shifts that go from being like a technician to really just a business owner and operator.
All right, so I want to ask you about that too, because there's another post you had. It's related to this, where and I think this one was on Instagram. I used to think I had to be the smartest real estate lawyer in the room to stand out. Turns out I just had to be the most present. And this relates to also the ability to really communicate with your clients, really from anywhere. But so talk to me about what you meant by that. Like, because I agree with you. You really don't have to be the smartest person in the room. It's really how you make the clients feel. But talk to me about that.
Yeah, so my entire life, I was a horrendous multitasker. Like everyone would be like, I mean, the thing is, like, I'd be on my phone, I'd be emailing, and someone would be talking at me, and I could listen, comprehend everything they were saying. I just wouldn't respond when they stopped talking, and I would respond like 5 minutes later, and that's like so disrespectful. Like I was just, like that's just like who I was for so long. But working with clients actually taught me, just presence, just fully listening to them. And that's like half the battle, right? And even now, too, in this day and age, like we're so connected to everything. It's like, oh, let me just send that text off. Hold on 1 minute. Let me just send that email off. And presence is just so important because, like, when you have someone's full attention, your phone is, even when your phone's turned over, I think that's still bad. It's like put the phone away so no one can even see it. And you just get like a different connection with that person when they know you're just like all ears, 100%.
Yeah, I can't remember where I saw this or I read this, but there was I started doing that recently myself, where it was, and it was funny is I don't even know why I picked up this habit. I remember I think it was my very first job interview in law school, and the attorney was he when I met with him, and this was back, by the way, this was like I graduated in 2010, so this was like in 07, 08, right around that time frame, where the first thing he did is he took his cell phone and he put it on the table. And I thought it was like, what a rude thing to do. But it's a normal thing now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I recently had read something or watched something about just just by you putting that on the phone, that phone on the table, you've completely changed the dynamic of your conversation that you're having with the person, because that thing's there, right? It's like this distraction point. And by just simply leaving it in your pocket, not, or just leaving it out in the car, something like that, the connection you can build with that person is so much greater. So that's something I've been trying to do recently. It's hard to do. it's hard to
Oh,
do because you're so used to doing it. But have
it's
you
so
found the
hard.
same thing?
Yeah, definitely. It's so hard. And it's also something I'm recently working on. Just in general, my whole shift has been to presence. A small example, like I was in Mexico for my birthday. I took the week off. I've recently hired an attorney to replace myself and buy back my time. And
Excellent.
just leaning into that, I was still glued to my phone and checking emails. And my partner looked over at me and he's like, "We are on the nicest beach. The weather is perfect. The sun is shining. You've got a cocktail in your hand and you're looking down at your phone." And I was like mortified, like when he called me out. And I was like, "You're so right. Throw my phone in the ocean."
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's the phone is such a blessing and a curse at the same time, and we do sometimes we miss out on most of the world by just looking down at our phones. I there was I've talked about this before, but we were I was in Scottsdale with my wife, and we like to go hiking when we go out there, and on the way down the mountain, we were
Can't
coming
hike
back.
and look at your phone.
No, no, not at all. And we weren't. But there was this guy that was coming down or coming up. He was starting. We were just ending our hike. He was just starting his hike, and this has turned into like such a joke between the two of me and my wife. But he's like, every single person that went by, he's like, "Hey, it's good to see you. Good to see you." And when he said it to us, we're like, "Do we know this guy?" It was like he said it to us like he'd do us. He looked at us right in the eyes, and he's like, it was like, "Oh, weird." Like, and we looked at each other. Do you know who was that? We're like, "I don't know." So what we could have had this challenge every once in a while where we're like, "All right, next person to say it to the next person wins," right? So, but what it got me doing is like looking up, and like the next week I was like going to the grocery store and stuff or wherever I was going, and it was amazing by the number of people when you're walking are not looking at it. They're looking down at their phone. They walking around, like if you're driving around, all you see people just looking at their phones. It
I
is
know.
the wildest thing. And you miss out on so much of the world when you do that.
It's so true. It's so true.
Yeah. Okay, so you've mentioned a couple times your kind of the vision for the firm, and also taking over your mom's company. Is there anything else to it? I wonder if you have like this big empire vision, or really what is the vision that you have for what you're building?
I like in this business coaching program that I'm in, one of the things we do upon joining is like figuring out your 10x vision. And I was writing everything down, and I was really excited about it, but then I went back and looked at it like 6 months later, like recently. And I was like, so much of this is like so superficial. It's like the houses and like the big business and like the 7, 8 figures and um all that. And I'm like really trying to figure out what it is that I want my life to look like and come from a place of like purpose and impact. Um I see money as a tool. There's a lot of like money work that I've been doing too to like shift my mindset around that. And using it to, have the nice things that I want in life, but also making sure that I'm like leaving an impact and creating like a generational path of just women in business, women in law, the remote work environment, like being able to work on your own terms and having the balance. I mean, you can't have it all, of course. There's a trade-off when you focus on one for the other, but trying to get as close as possible to like what is authentic to you. And building my business has been such a journey in that, because a lot of it I've built from like, how does this make me feel? And I've never had the opportunity to do that in my life, because it's like you just follow the path that has come before you and what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, I think I wonder, do you think that by focusing on like how does it make me feel, that has sometimes gotten you into a little bit of a trouble, or has caused problems for you, or do you think that that's worked pretty well for you?
I think the biggest problem, it's caused problems just for my own self. I think it's just that I have to become comfortable with being misunderstood and getting pushback, or people telling me like, I can't do it this way. You shouldn't do it this way. Um, so I think that's been the biggest thing. I think when you're true to yourself and you're making decisions from like a good place with good intentions, it can't be wrong,
Yeah. What was the exercise you're supposed to do? Is it like what's your 10x vision? Was it,
Mhm.
have you ever
Like
thought?
dream so big that it's like unbelievable, you know?
Yeah. Have you ever tried to dissect actually sit and think about like what you wanted your life to look like in like 30 years? What do you eat for breakfast? What do you do when you get up? Have you gone through that at all?
Um, I feel like not like 30 years from now, it's like the 10x made me think about like the next decade.
Yeah.
But, yeah, like I do try to write out scenes of like how will I feel when I wake up? What is like the first thing that I'll reach for to just really try to like be in that energy and like visualize it.
Yeah, that's kind of what I like to do. I really like to go like 30 years out and thinking like, okay, like what's my relationship like with my kids, with my wife, all that kind of stuff. And then that way you can kind of you can reverse engineer it and okay, what are the milestones I need to hit for that? And then what does the next decade look like? What are the next 5 years, 3 years, 1 year, and all that? So, I think it's kind of a fun exercise. I don't know about you, but I like going through that and thinking about it. And then you can track your progress too.
Yeah, and it gives you something to work towards at least, right? Because I feel like a lot of this is like you have to know your why. Otherwise, you're just gonna want to burn it all down. Because I feel like that a lot of days, you know?
Yeah. That's for sure. That's for sure. Um, we only have a few minutes left, so I'm gonna end with this question. We talked about you're going to be speaking at MaxLawCon. What would you say is one key principle without giving away everything from that presentation? What do you think is one key principle behind successfully scaling a remote firm that most lawyers miss?
I think you have to be really clear about who you are.
Okay, tell me more about that. What do you mean?
When I started like who I was when I started my practice to like who I am now is a completely different Ruma. Um, and it's been a journey, and I think that you know part of the scaling is embracing the journey because it's going to be hard. You're going to make the wrong decisions. Like you're going to fail. Just fail fast and keep going. But you also need to know like who are you? What makes you tick? Like why are you doing this?
It's a great message. I love it. It's a great way to end it. Thank you so much for your time, Ruma. Really appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for having me.